that all of you are ready to go to sleep, it really is important for us to take time during our day to kind of get in that Zen zone, and that's going to be one of the big topics that I'm going to talk about this evening. And for any of you who've sat in my office in a consultation, which some of you have been there, some of you haven't, and may you never have to be there if you haven't had a diagnosis. Lifestyle modification, and what we're going to talk about this evening, and reducing the risk, it's not just about reducing our risk of getting cancer again if you've had cancer. It's about looking at what you can educate your children about, your friends about, your students about, because cancer is one of those pervasive problems in our society right now, and everyone keeps asking why? Why are we seeing so much of it? How do we stop it? You know, where do we get this train to derail off the track so we can just get back to living? So hopefully I'm going to enlighten you a little bit this evening, and we will have time for questions. And again, if someone's watching this on video, because this will go on Facebook, it will go on YouTube, and I will send out the PDF notes of the evening, because I know that some of you are anal retentive and you're going to want to take notes on your pieces of paper when you get back through and watch it. All cool, very good. And yeah, this is my this is the view from my porch, and there's a couple women on this side of the room who were there last week, and they can attest to the fact that this is real, this is not staged. I didn't put a screen up in the back, and I welcomed them to my house, and they thought they were coming for a welcome beverage to Sedona, and 4 hours later I couldn't drag them out of my hot tub. I'm like, ladies, I got to go to work tomorrow, you need to leave. So tonight we're going to talk about lifestyle and breast cancer risk reduction, because breast cancer is one of those cancers that is directly related to lifestyle. It's not something that everybody wants to face. It's not one of the realities of the world that is easy to swallow, but we have choices to make in life. Again, I have to thank my son, Dean Dupree, who did have his first drink at the first, for anyone who was here at the last talk. And you spell it differently. I thought it was F-I-R-S-T, but it's P-H-I-R-S-T. You know, I didn't go to Penn State. I got up there the next night, and so be it. So, oh, I forgot to turn my microphone off, did you tell? A lot of times I get the question, what can I do, doctor, to make my cancer not come back? And you know, I have a crystal ball, y'all know about that. And it's not just about what we can do individually, it's how can you begin to educate your children, your grandchildren, your friends and neighbors, because you now are the wisdom keeper, because you've gone through the process, and everybody expects you to be an expert and have a PhD on breast cancer. So this is mold, and this is what happens when there's no ventilation, there's no light in a room. And this was when we peeled off the wallpaper from my son Dean's bathroom, and I was wondering why he's had so many allergies all these years. Hello! There was mold hidden behind the wallpaper. So I got out the Clorox, and miraculously, look what happens. So if you think of breast cancer as the mold that shows up in your body, the Clorox is my surgery, the oncologist chemo, or the radiation oncologist radiation therapy, and we wipe away the mold. But there is this process that you have to say, okay, so if you wiped away the mold, how do I keep the mold from coming back? Like, you do all the right stuff to get the mold off of there. So you gotta open up the windows, you've gotta let in the light, and you've gotta let in the ventilation. Because what you have to do is be able to change the environment in which the cancer decided to come. So if you think about it in those terms, that you've gone through your treatment, the mold is gone, what can you personally do to change your environment? Because you don't want this to happen again. Because you don't want to get the Clorox out again. And I'm sitting there and Connie's looking at me going, yeah, I had Clorox twice, thank you very much. I don't want to talk about this again, because we know that sometimes we do have to go for the Clorox to get the cancer to disappear. But how do we keep that from happening? So there was a book I read a couple years ago called Radical Remission by Kelly Turner. And it was a novel idea. Kelly's a PhD, and she did her thesis not on why do people die of cancer, but why are people living in spite of the fact that they have metastatic cancer. Like, look at the group of people who are supposedly not supposed to be here, and what are they doing differently? So she has a list, and her list is pretty important. Number one, these people radically changed their diet. Most of them looked at, were they eating whole foods? Were they eating good nutrient substances? Or were they grabbing Burger King on the way home from work because they didn't have enough time to eat a healthy diet? We obviously have to take control of our health. Like, our health is our greatest of wealth. And if you don't take control of it and you don't decide to be the CEO of your health and manage your health, you won't be responsible for the outcome. And there's this whole thing called intuition, and it's real. We all have it, even men have intuition. Sometimes their wives have to tell them about it and to remind them that they have it. And Tom, not you, I know your intuition is very good because you married Carrie, and that was a very intuitive thing. But a lot of times, when you have a gut feeling about something. Like, I heard somebody talking about switching oncologists. If you've got a gut feeling that you're not with the person you're supposed to be with on your journey for treatment, you listen to your gut and you get out of there. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be doing the woulda, coulda, shouldas because you stayed somewhere because you thought you had to. There are many herbs and supplements, and a lot of times these things come in the form of the food that we eat. So I'm not a big fan of taking the pill as a supplement. I'm a big fan of understanding which food substances and supplements can enhance our healing process. So here's a part that's not really talked about very often, and it's called releasing suppressed emotions. If you notice, if you hold on to things deep down inside, they fester. It's like a zit, like a subterranean pimple. You know that it's just right there and it's under the surface and it's waiting to erupt, but it doesn't erupt, and then sometimes it disappears a little bit more, but then it comes back out. When you have suppressed emotions, you are like a pressure cooker sitting inside waiting for something to happen. And I now believe that suppressed emotions and us not healing and not actually healing the grief that we carry from a lot of things is related to why our bodies react the way they do. And that also involves increasing positive emotions. You ever notice, like, if you have positive people, if you're around positive people, you feel better? I had a patient come in today. She's finished her 3rd cycle of chemo. Her husband was cute as a button. He's like, I love coming to see you because I feel really good. And I'm like, it's because I'm a positive person. If I was like, oh, Eeyore, here we're going to talk about your cancer. Nobody would want to come to my office. But you come in with a positive attitude, and for my patient today, her 2.5 centimeter cancer is gone. Like, you see the marker from the biopsy. And I said, do you get now what the positive effect of the chemo up front is? You got to feel your cancer disappear from your body. And you know that those things that we're giving you to treat that cancer, that Clorox that's treating that mold, it's working. And the fact that everybody's in this room tonight, you're embracing social support, because patients who have a good social network, whether it's a support group, friends, family, they do better stage for stage, grade for grade, because isolation is one of the worst health hazards on our planet. It doesn't matter if you've got diabetes, hypertension, or heart disease. Isolation is a bigger risk factor than sometimes the Burger King, double Whopper or whatever they have there. I haven't been there in so long. Also, deepening your spiritual connection. I had a couple girlfriends in Sedona recently who went on a shamanic journey, and I think there was a slight deepening of a spiritual connection. Some things that they may never have thought would ever kind of awaken inside of them. And it doesn't have to be like going to Machu Picchu like Jody and trekking for 5 days to 15,000 feet, in the rain and being, washed down a gully of a river trying to get to this Mecca. Whatever you do to deepen your spiritual connection, if it's going to church, if it is going to Mass on Saturday nights, if it's going to a shrine or someplace to meditate, it's about having a connection with a higher power without judgment for what that higher power is. And you gotta have a strong reason for living. Because if you don't have a desire to wake up the next morning and be happy and healthy, there's no way you're gonna keep waking up in the morning, because eventually you're gonna have your self-fulfilling prophecy. So Kelly Turner's awesome. She wrote this book, Radical Remission. I think it's a great book because she tells stories in there of people who had stage 4 cancers, and she shares, and it's not that there's one road that's the right road for everybody. It's really about learning that as you take a look at this list and you're taking stock of your life, you go, where are my opportunities for improvement? And those of you who know me, you know I talk about them, because none of us have anything wrong with us. We all have opportunities for improvement. So this is one of my favorite studies, because it looked at stage 2 and 3 breast cancer patients, an 11-year follow-up. Okay, and if you look at statistics for stage 2 and 3 breast cancer across the board, you're going to get all kinds of different numbers. But patients that had a healthy diet, that had physical activity, that did some form of yoga or meditation, and had social support, they all had the same, they all had the same surgery, chemo, and radiation. 56% reduction in mortality purely by doing those 4 things on the list. And that's called taking control of your life and being present in your process. 75% of cancers have 0 family history. And so it's kind of frustrating to me when someone comes in and says, well, how can I have cancer? I don't have a family history. No one's ever had it. And biggest risk factor, being born a woman, and then living on this planet. So we all have genes, we all have DNA, but our DNA isn't our destiny. And so we need to understand that within our physical bodies, our DNA is kind of the blueprint. It's kind of there, but it's not the architect. We're not, you can change a blueprint. You don't have to express what the blueprint says when you build a house. You can decide you wanted a bigger bathroom, or you can have an addition for a recreation room. Just because a blueprint says something doesn't mean that it has to happen. And so we know that obesity is one of our greatest risk factors in the United States for the development of cancer and other diseases. And there's a study called epigenetics, and I love epigenetics, because epigenetics is the study of the external influencers of gene expression. So you can have DNA, and your DNA can sit there, but epigenetics are the factors that create your DNA either switching on or switching off. And what happens is it's the things that pull the protein coats off your DNA to be able to let it replicate. So we have the ability to make changes in that. And if you haven't read the book, Biology of Belief, it's amazing. I don't know who gave it to me. It's on CD in my car. And about 1.5 years ago, it started playing randomly. Like, you get in the car and I didn't have the car CD player turned on. I didn't even know that I had loaded the CDs in my car, and suddenly Bruce Lipton's talking to me. And I became addicted to listening to this book, driving back and forth to work. And I get to spend the weekend with him next weekend, because I have to take vacation before January, because in my new health system in Arizona, you have to use it or lose it. And so I'm thinking, what am I going to do? My husband's not out there yet. So I went on the internet, and I'm searching my favorite teachers that I love. Bruce Lipton's coming to Sedona. So I'm like, hello, sign me up. We know that oxidative stress there are things that happen in our life, such as ionizing radiation, living over top of a septic pool that has fumes of carcinogens, working in an operating room and sucking in the smoke from a bovie when we can use other devices that don't have that kind of smoke. Oxidative stress causes these oxygen forms to become radicalized. Poof. Suddenly you have free radicals going through your body, and they're out there trying to destroy and break down your DNA. So that's why we have to learn about the antioxidant network. What are the antioxidants that our body can make, that our body can kind of get out there and push these free radicals out of the way so that they don't make our DNA break? So we're going to learn about that tonight too. So this is what's under your control, believe it or not. There's actually a lot under our control. Our DNA is not our destiny, guys. The DNA is simply the double-stranded helix, kind of makes up it's our genetic makeup, but it's not our genetic determinism. It's not what makes us who we are. So we have choices about smoking, alcohol consumption. Some of you in this room, the ship has sailed. You can't go back and pick the age of the birth of your first child. You can't go back and breastfeed, because some of you don't have them anymore, but that's okay. If you used them, for their purpose, so be it. So we're going to talk about body composition, nutrition, exercise, and the last two, the stress and the attitude of gratitude, are probably the two of the biggest ones again, because there's this thing called the bliss coefficient. And to me, we do not spend enough time in our lives finding our bliss coefficient. And I'm telling you that despite the fact that my transition from where I am here at Redeemer, and I love everybody here, but I will tell you, I didn't love being an administrator, because that's not where my greatest gift lies. My greatest gift lies in empowering, educating, and taking care of patients. I'm not good at babysitting orthopedic surgeons because I don't have time for them. And so what I've realized through this process is that, my bliss coefficient has just gone off the charts, because now I'm not just getting my blissful experiences 1 week out of every 6 months. I'm trying to create my bliss coefficient every single day. And there's a magazine, which I grabbed it checking out at Safeway last week, because it kind of grabbed me, and then I saw that it cost $13.99. I said, what was I thinking? Because it was an awful lot of money, and I just thought it was like a regular Time magazine, but you know that time on the airplane when you can't have your electronic devices on? So I thought I needed it for the plane, so it sat at my bedside, and I think some of it absorbed, because as I started reading this magazine, and I'm only partway through it because I thought I was going to have all this time this week to read it and like educate, but you're going to have to get it yourself. It is really amazing, and the one article that I read by an integrative physician that really spoke to me was from a physician who talked about in her practice how she has different groups of people where, they're all taking their supplements, they're all exercising, they're doing their mindfulness, they're doing the yoga, their BMI is perfect. And why does the one group get disease and the other one doesn't? And so she went back to look at the different groups. Lo and behold, the people without the bliss in their life, the ones that are in miserable relationships that were just afraid to leave, the people who were in miserable jobs that had energy vampire bosses, and Deb, do not say that it's me, because I will. Gotta be careful when your employees are in the audience. But when you take stock of what you do on your day-to-day basis, why do we wait for 1 week a year, or 2 weeks a year, or 3 weeks a year to find bliss and happiness? And so I think that was, to me, that was one of the greatest take-homes from that article, is this physician actually looked across the board at her patients, and the people that were getting sick, despite the fact that they were doing all the stuff appropriately physically, were the ones that were really not happy with different aspects of their life. It's an easy one. If you smoke, just get up now and let go, because I'm done with you. So this is the tough one. We had this conversation, and I think Deb and her friends saved up their entire annual allotment of alcohol for their few days in Sedona. And I did participate with them, I have to say, because I'm not like I'm not polypurebred. I love a nice glass of wine, but alcohol is a carcinogen, specifically with breast cancer. So it doesn't mean that you stop drinking. It means you have to recognize that 3 to 5 units of alcohol per week should be it. And 1 unit of alcohol is 4 ounces. It's a half a cup. That is not a lot of wine. It's not a good pour. A bartender that pours that, you're telling them, I'm sorry, I just paid you good money. Like, that is a crappy pour. So understand in moderation. Women that drink 3 or more glasses of wine per day up their risk of breast cancer by 37%. Do you think anybody really actually wants to increase their risk of breast cancer that high? So if you know someone's drinking 3 glasses of wine a day to get over the stress of their job, quit your damn job. Like, if you have to go home and have 3 glasses of wine to recover from work, you're in the wrong job, just saying. So the fact that 70% of postmenopausal breast cancers are estrogen driven, what we're doing is we're basically fueling a fire. So we have an opportunity to not do that. And I have a great alternative. It's called pomegranate juice, and you're going to see later in the talk the importance of pomegranate juice. So when the girls are not visiting the West Coast and I'm at my house by myself and I come home from work, I get my very expensive pomegranate juice because it's $11 for that stupid little bottle. And I dump my pomegranate juice in my big wine glass, and I put some club soda in it, and I sit down and I enjoy the experience of sitting on my porch, looking at the sunset, drinking out of my beautiful expensive wine glass with my very expensive pomegranate juice, but I'm not getting the effects of the alcohol. And ladies, this is not 1 glass of wine. I know Dr. Kreischer tried this, and she said, we showed up at a party and she had a fishbowl. I said, Stacy, this is not the way 1 glass of wine works. So for many of you in the audience, you're already past the breastfeeding phase, and some of you may have breastfed and still gotten breast cancer. But what I'm telling you is, if you hadn't breastfed, you could have gotten it sooner, or you could have gotten a different kind. You know, there's no free lunch here. Like, this is all about the collective picture. So, we're supposed to have our first kid before the age of 30. I had mine at like the month before I turned 30. And I breastfed for a year because I was trying to rewind that clock. And we know that breastfeeding does help decrease the risk of breast cancer. So women that breastfed for 12 to 24 months had a 66% reduction in breast cancer. That's a big reduction. And specifically, women who are at high risk, you know, if you've got a high-risk family, breastfeeding even more is even better. So we know it makes a difference. It's not the only factor at play, but it's one of the factors that are modifiable. So, you know, I will be having this talk with my future daughter-in-law someday about the importance of breastfeeding, whether they take it or not. You know, that's all I can do is educate. And then there's estrogen. And a lot of people think estrogen is like evil and horrible. And you know, estrogen's great. It keeps your face from wrinkling. You know, it helps you sleep better at night sometimes. It helps you get rid of, you know, those personal heat waves called hot flashes. And when I ask patients where estrogen comes from, they say, my ovaries. I'm like, well, you're 70 years old, so clearly I'm thinking that your ovaries probably are not the biggest source of your estrogen. And everybody in this room who sat in my office knows what the source of estrogen is, don't you? Belly fat. What lies between your boobs and your butt is belly fat. And it's the one thing that we all hate. I mean, I hate that picture because I think that's going to be, because I know what my mom's tummy looks like. And you know, like you have that mother thing, you think you're going to end up looking just like your mother. That is not my mom. I did not go to the nursing home and take a photo. This is totally from the internet. But here's the truth. Cholesterol, which is like one of those components of our belly fat, and this is really going back to biochemistry 101. It goes through multiple iterations to get to estradiol. And estradiol is the bad estrogen. We don't want that floating around our bodies because it can stimulate cells to grow. So for anybody in the room who knows what an aromatase inhibitor is, this final conversion of one little methyl group, CH3, we pop it off with aromatase and it becomes estradiol. Guess what? That's all it takes, is that conversion, okay? So you take your aromatase inhibitor, you decrease your circulating estrogen. When you go off your aromatase inhibitor and you still have the same substrate sitting between your boobs and your butt, what do you think happens? And you know, I have a lot of people freaking out about Olivia Newton-John getting breast cancer years and years later. Well, you know what? Cells can lie quiescent in the body, and if we stress them out, if we bang them with cortisol, if we re-stimulate them with estrogen, you know, it can happen. You know, I wish we had like the perfect magic pill to make it not happen, but understanding how this chemical reaction happens is important. So estrogen is the fuel to the fire. It's not the cause of cancer. Estrogen alone does not cause breast cancer. Estrogen is one of the factors that can stimulate cells to divide if there's an estrogen receptor on the surface of the cell. So make sure that we know that, you know, if you're going to take estrogen, understand that there's a risk to it. And bioidentical hormones are still estrogen. So patients that say, oh, well, my doctor put me on these compounded estrogens and they're bioidentical. It's still estrogen. I don't care how you slice it, whether it comes from a horse, isn't it horse urine, I think? It's something bizarre like that. I don't even know, it grosses me out, but estrogen is estrogen. So back in 2003, the Women's Health Initiative was kind of looking at menopausal symptoms in women, and they gave women Prempro, or the combination estrogen and progesterone, because I believe that it was a big deal because doctors just didn't want to hear women bitch and moan about their menopausal symptoms. So what happened was a study came out that looked at what happened with estrogen and progesterone, and as we when that study first came out and showed that there's a higher incidence of breast cancer, the follow-up study in 2010, a lot of women had gone off the estrogen and progesterone because of the 2004 study. But what we found out was that they used to say that, oh, estrogen doesn't make the cancers worse, like nobody had bad effects from that study. But we know that the cancers were higher grade, they had a higher incidence of node positivity, and there was an increased incidence of breast cancer. And that was a big deal because we were kind of led to believe when the Women's Health Initiative first started that it wasn't going to have, that there were We're just treating menopause. And that's what popped me onto the my first time with Brian Williams, which was lovely. Actually, that was the second time because it was a different outfit, as I remember now. And what happened was the whole bottom line was we were treating the symptoms of menopause because women were coming to the office complaining of hot flashes and inability to sleep and fatigue. And there's so many other ways that we can treat hot flashes besides giving estrogen and progesterone and potentially stimulating cancer cells. So, hot flashes, we can use a homeopathic called Octiane, which is a non-estrogen source. Works great in about 75 to 80% of patients. Relazin, which again works in about 80% of cases. Exercise is a huge way to get rid of hot flashes, but you got to do it on a regular basis. Acupuncture, black cohosh, and in the really worst cases, we can use clonidine. Not a big fan of using the SSRIs, the antidepressants. Some people will use them, but I think that's where we can be getting other side effects and symptoms in addition. So body composition is a really important thing, and some of you in this room may have come to my office, and when we talk about estrogen and belly fat, I look at you and I say, listen, don't be thinking because your BMI is good that I'm not going to hit you with the fact that you're skinny fat, because there's skinny fat girls everywhere, and you know which ones I'm talking about. They're stick thin women that their skin hangs on their body, they don't have lean muscle mass. And that's just as dangerous as having a high BMI and not having muscle, because they're still making estrogen, they still have fat, and fat is that substrate. So body composition matters. BMI is how we in the United States tend to measure this. And for some of you, I may have given you the option of growing 4 inches taller or dropping 40 pounds, whichever was easier to attain your BMI at an ideal weight. But the statistics, these slides to me are by far, these are telling of how our cultural perspective in the United States has changed and why we need to kind of get back to the basics of caring for our health. So if you look at the upper left-hand United States, that was back in 1985. Fast forward down to 2010, and what we're looking at is the blue means that less than 10% of the population, that light blue had less than 10% of the population was obese. The dark red means that higher than 30% of the population was obese. And I would like to go back to 1985 because I think this was really awesome, where we only had a few states with 10 to 15% obesity. And clearly the whole central part of the United States could give a crap about what BMI was because nobody participated in the study. But this is 2005, and this is pretty bad because 20 years later, we have more than 55% of the continental and extended US with a BMI over 30. And we want to know why breast cancer incidence is highly on the rise and why we're going to continue to see it more and more and more and more. We got to go back to elementary school and junior high and change how we feed our kids, how we educate our kids, how they learn how to exercise and what they do to de-stress. So we know that also in postmenopausal women that they have a higher risk of getting metastatic cancer, and it's related to the weight gain after menopause. Newsflash, when you turn 30, your metabolism drops, maybe 10%. When you turn 40, another 11%. When you turn 50, 11%. So we're like 33% slower metabolically when we hit our 50s. And I will tell you, well, I don't have to tell you, it's really hard to lose. Like, I'm 56 now, and it is like an act of Congress to move that scale 2 or 3 pounds. Like, I have to call and get, budgetary support from, 45 people to move the needle, and I'm like, I didn't eat anything. How can I weigh more? You can't. I don't want. How do you weigh more after you've been up for an hour and a half and you haven't had anything to eat or drink? How can you get on the scale and have it be a pound higher? I'm like, is that like stress weight? Like, did I, suck in some fluid somehow? So what we also have to recognize is it used to be the party line that, hey, guess what? It's only the estrogen-driven cancers that are really being affected by weight gain because it's the body fat that forms the estrogen that stimulates the cells. Well, insulin resistance and obesity, and belly obesity, is also associated with a higher risk of triple-negative cancers. So it's about that insulin resistance, how we are able to metabolize what we eat, in our diets. And if we can't break down what we're eating and we're still producing more estrogen because we've got the extra fat, it's going to bite us. So nutrition. I love nutrition because I now have a healthy relationship with food. I eat clean food. I will tell you that our Healthy Cooking for Life class has really made a difference for me. And I can't remember the last time I went to a fast food restaurant. I know I took my kids there years ago, but God's given me a free pass because I was busy. This study came out in March of 2016, and many of you in my office have heard me preach about this because they'll say, oh, you look so good. How did you lose your belly fat? Did you have a tummy tuck? I'm like, no, I didn't have a tummy tuck. I read this article, and I said, wow, if you fast for 14 hours a night, which means if I have dinner at 7 o'clock at night, I don't eat until after 9 the next morning. And I was always told, you gotta get up and you gotta have breakfast, because if you don't have breakfast, blah, blah, blah. And so what I realized is this actually makes sense, because if you think about it, our DNA is probably more like caveman DNA, where you get up with the sun, you go to bed with the sun. When you have a prolonged fast, you probably sleep better because you're spending more time sleeping, not eating or drinking. And if you're having a 12-hour fast, you're not drinking alcohol during that 14-hour period, because obviously that counts as calories. So what they found was that if women were eating between dinner and the next morning, they had increased hemoglobin A1C, so it was changing their insulin resistance, changing their glucose, and they also found out that there was an increased incidence of breast cancer recurrence, which the flip side is there's a decreased risk of recurrence if you have the prolonged fasting. So it's kind of a simple thing, and what I recognized by doing this was I lost about 1 pound a month for about 8 months, but it was all this stuff, it was all the belly fat, which, I don't know, anyway, anybody else in the room has an idea, please give it up. You can become rich and famous because that belly fat's the tough one. So our relationship with food, when I couldn't even watch the movie Super Size Me because the whole thing just made me nauseous. This guy gorged himself just to prove a point. But we really have to get a healthy relationship with food. And I love this little book. So if you want a fun little book just to have as a reminder, get Food Rules, because it's got some great rules, such as eat food. Eat real food. Don't be opening bags that make crunchy noises when you open it. Junk food is just crap. There's no nutritional value in it whatsoever. And I have a husband who happens to like M&Ms. I'm like, could you keep them out of the house? Because you might have willpower, but like some days I have stress, and I like to be really good, but a pound of peanut M&Ms is just like too much of a little thing hanging out there when I'm having a bad day, and I can't just have one. So here's your environment that you have to start with, and I think when Connie goes on home tours of people's houses, like what the refrigerator and the cupboard is like one of her first places, and I try now in my fridge, I use nice glass containers because I can't stand the plastic, and I leave carrots and celery and hummus in free view, so that when I come home from work and I'm getting ready to make dinner and I'm really starving, the first thing that I see is not a chocolate bar or some decadent something like cheese, whatever. I'm looking at the carrots and the hummus because I want that to be my first choice. Do not eat anything, rule number 3, that your grandma wouldn't recognize as food. Okay, so, out myself, how many people in this room fed your kids Pop-Tarts? Forever? I did. It was like, and I was excited when they chose like the fruit ones over the cinnamon or the s'mores. Oh my God, there's fruit! Yeah, it's not. It's all dried stuff with sugar and crap in it. We also need to get a really healthy relationship with protein and meat. And it doesn't mean that we don't eat meat, but we don't need as much meat as like the 32-ounce brontosaurus steak that sometimes they try to sell you at the restaurant, where you could feed a family of 5 for a month on it. So treat meat as flavor. And rule number 24, if it stands on 1 leg, it's better than 2 legs, which is better than 4 legs. And getting more plant-based in our diets, it's great. Our colons love us for that. You get more regular, everything's happy. When you have more roughage in your diet, you're pulling more, fat out in your diet. Your poops get more regular, everybody's happy because you don't spend as much time in the bathroom, you don't have hemorrhoids, life is good, one leg. And eat your colors. Our antioxidants come in the colors. They come in the berries, all of the bright colored stuff. You know, don't buy organic apples, don't cut the peel off of it. That's where the good stuff is. We're gonna get to the organic thing, but like when you're buying fruits that are vulnerable fruits, as I say, that could have, you know, get the pesticides stuck into them, pay for the good stuff. You don't, you know, just, I buy frozen, don't buy fresh fruit to put in a shake. Buy the frozen organic because it's flash frozen. It's way less expensive, and if you're gonna throw it in a shake anyway, who cares? It's gonna be mushed up, and that's what matters. Antioxidants come from all kinds of sources, but you want to be eating your antioxidants. You don't necessarily need to be popping a pill because that's not the answer to antioxidants. And eat animals that have eaten well themselves. So I eat not chickens like this. I eat free-range chicken, and I eat grass-fed beef, and I eat wild-caught fish. Because I don't want my fish colored with that yucky, bright orange salmon. It's probably salmon number 23 dye. Nothing grosses me out more than seeing that big slab of salmon and knowing that they shoved dye in there to make it feel better, to make me want to eat it. So go for the fresh caught stuff. Go for I'll tell, like Costco, a lot of the stores that sell in bulk have great organic beef. You don't have to buy it fresh at the farmer's market. You can buy the packs that are very inexpensive, and you can make great tacos for your friends when they come to visit. It tastes pretty good, didn't it? I didn't even sneak in the bison with you guys either, because I was just afraid that you would like have a bison attack or something. And don't overlook the little oily fishes. They're a great source of omega-3s. And the whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. That's one of my favorite rules, number 37. You know, and I grew up on White Wonder bread. Anybody else in this room? White Wonder bread with, oh my God, the jelly that really wasn't jelly. Like, you know there was no fruit in there. It's all like pectin. And then somebody's nasty peanut butter. I mean, I turned out okay, but like I now look at the source of what I'm eating, and it's certainly not that white bread. And eat less. And this is another thing that as we get older, we eat, like I am guilty as charged. As the 7th of 7 children, and as a surgical resident, I have a really bad habit of eating fast. And that's the one thing of starting to become mindful when I eat and realizing, as my husband will say, honey, you don't have to eat so fast, I'm not going to steal your food. Which is kind of like a little gentle reminder that he loves me, even though I want to put a dagger in his eye when he says it. But you don't have to eat fast, and the slower you eat, the more quickly you fill up. Because did you ever eat so fast that afterwards you go, oh my God, I ate too much, why did I eat so much? And you know that had you slowed down, you would not nearly have eaten as much. And so I now kind of get in the habit when I go out to eat, where I will kind of cut it in half, whatever's on my plate, because half of that is great for lunch tomorrow, and then I don't have to think about it. And you eat what's there, and you enjoy it, or you have a little salad with it. And so being mindful of your portions is also very important. Rule number 47, eat when you're hungry, not when you're bored. Who's ever had anything to eat when you're bored? When you don't know what you want to do, and is it the worst when you open the cupboard and like something's going to speak to you from the cupboard and say, eat me, oh come on, Twinkie, whatever. I mean, we shouldn't eat when we're bored. It's not good, it's not a good habit. Because there we're just trying to find something to bring happiness into our tummy and then into our heart, which should be easier if we found what makes our heart happy, because then our tummy doesn't care anymore, because the bliss coefficient goes up. Eat snacks, unprocessed plant foods. I have all kinds of raw nuts in my cabinet now. I will pack a little baggie, those little snack pack baggies, which are really nice because that way you don't take the quart size to work. Because if you eat a quart size bag of walnuts, your butt will grow. Just because it's healthy doesn't mean that it's not going to have high caloric value. So, you know, be mindful of that. And if you're going to eat an apple, eat some kind of protein with it because it helps your body digest it better. And you're not going to get the glucose spike. You're going to get a nice lengthened spike on your sugars. I mean, on your glucose. And treat treats as treats. It doesn't mean you don't get dessert, right, ladies? How many desserts do we have that night? They're like, oh, we could have this. I'm like, you guys, there's like 6 of us. We're getting 2 desserts. You know, 6 spoons, but 2 desserts. Like, you don't need 6 desserts. Do you know how many calories are in dessert? I mean, some of them are just crazy, but don't deny yourself the pleasure of tasting a delicious dessert. Just deny it attaching to your rear end completely by only eating a bite or 2, because that's really what you want. You don't need the whole thing. I mean, my favorite is the dulce de leche, which is, this is like the most decadent, Connie, you're gonna love it in January. We're gonna share it, and we're gonna each have 2 bites, then we're gonna put it aside. But sometimes there's just, people have created such amazing, like, taste sensations. Don't deny yourself having that taste sensation, but you don't have to eat the whole thing. It's not, you know, my mom, you know, we used to have the thing, you need to clean your place because there's children starving in Africa. It's like, okay, fine, let's pack up my food, let's send it to Africa. I mean, let's help those starving children, but me cleaning my plate doesn't help that starving child, it just makes me get bigger in my jeans. And you gotta cook. Rule number 63. And cooking really has to be fun, and it's funny, some people are like, oh, you're by yourself in Arizona this month. Like, did you eat out? I'm like, I cooked. Well, how did you cook for yourself? Well, it's easy. I get home and I pull out the ingredients and I chop them up and I eat leftovers. So I pack my lunch for the week, and this is one of the things that I learned from our health cooking class. I roast my vegetables, I will cook or pull my chicken, and you know what, at the end of the week, if I haven't eaten all stuff, I'm gonna throw some of it away. It's okay. You know, I'm not gonna get caught by the food police for not eating it. You know, it's like I only need so much food. So here's the one question that I believe everybody asks. Can supplements decrease cancer risk? So can I take a pill instead of eating my broccoli? Now, there is a form of broccoli cell called diethylmethane, but if I had my choice between you chopping up broccoli and eating broccoli or taking a supplement, I'll take the broccoli every day. Because a supplement can never replace what we naturally get in our food substances. I do not like these. These are fake. There's never been a study, and unless it's been suppressed, I don't know, but I do not like fake sugar. If you would like to sweeten something that you're drinking or eating, I prefer that you use honey or agave. They are still sweet, they are still sugar, they still have calories, but at least they don't have things that I can't pronounce and that I don't know what the effect is going to be. And I think we've now become a society addicted to these sweeteners, and there are enough studies to show that diet soda with these sweeteners makes people gain weight, not lose weight, because it pings some receptor in your head that makes you want more. And they were good at, just like those people that made cigarettes. So when we're looking at organic food, you don't have to buy every substance, every food or vegetable in the grocery store that's organic, because otherwise you will have no money to put gas in your car to drive home. But if you look at the Clean 15, that means the avocados, the asparagus, mangoes, mushrooms. These are food substances that you can choose not to have to spend extra money for the organic. But the apples, the bell peppers, the blueberries, the nectarines, the potatoes, the peaches, the stuff that's going to get the insecticide sucked into it, that's what you should be spending your money on, the organics. So you can have a nice little picture, take it, put it in your wallet or your phone when you're shopping. And is soy safe? Yeah, soy is soy. There's so many different studies. I don't tell patients to go on a high soy diet, nor do I tell them to avoid it. There were so many studies done on soy years ago where they're very skewed because there's so many other cultural differences in how the studies looked at. And I like tofu. I eat it. I eat it when I'm at a Chinese restaurant. Big deal. But I don't go out and buy soy milk and buy soy everything. Soy is a fairly common product in a lot of things that we buy that are processed. So if you were trying to avoid soy, good luck, because you'd have to read every label. And this, I'm not a fan of sugar, I'm just telling you. I'm not a fan of, you know, the sodas that have 2 tablespoons of sugar in them. I don't believe that sugar gives you cancer. Sugar is something that your body is going to make from whatever substrate. But if your body has to work a little harder to make the sugar, I think it's probably a little better for us than dumping the sugar in and taking the 5-gallon, you know, bag of sugar and shoving it down our throats. There's a test called a PET-CT scan, and patients will say to me all the time, well, how does it work? Well, we take glucose and we label it with a radioactive tracer, and then we look to see if it gets taken up in your body. There are some cancers that we call glucose avid, which light up like a Christmas tree. In those cancers, do I think we should be like having our patients eat high diets, high in sugar and in simple carbs? Absolutely not. But I don't think that you have to avoid every aspect of sugar, because your body's going to make glucose as a fuel. I'm just not a big fan of sugar because I think it poisons our microbiome and makes the organisms that live symbiotically in our GI tract want more of it, and then you crave it again. So that's my thing on sugar. So we need to eat to live, not live to eat, and we've become a society where we live to eat. And I am a foodie. I'm gonna tell you, I love good food, but I have a rule, and many of you have heard my rule. It's the 90-10 rule. 90% of the time, I follow all my rules and I behave, and I'm a really good girl, and I do the right stuff because I happen to work most of the week. So it's very easy for 90% of the time for me to behave and do that, because I don't have time to go misbehave. I don't have time to go out and get a double caramel frappuccino latte, something from Starbucks. I pack my lunch, I pack my snacks, I tend to eat a healthy dinner at night, but on the weekends, if I want to go out and have a cheeseburger and french fries, I am not going to have any guilt about eating my cheeseburger and french fry. Because then, if I do have guilt about eating my cheeseburger and french fry, then I'm then giving that food a bad vibe before I ingest it. So if any of you in this room have ever had anything to eat and you're thinking that you're guilty about eating it, you need to get over yourselves right now, because you're gonna love that food, whatever you're about to put in your body. And I do love french fries, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think they're great. You know, I wish they were good for us, because that would be wonderful. I could survive every day on french fries. But they're not. But I don't always eat all of them that are on my plate. So if I want my burger and fries, I don't always eat all the fries. I don't think I have to clean the plate for the fries, but I still want to taste the good stuff. So if you think about the 90-10 rule, there's 365 days a year. And if 90% of the time you're going to behave, that gives you about 30-some days per year. 30 days that you get to have a little bit of reckless abandon. And that's not going to derail your process if you are good those other 90% of the time. So just reframe your head and stop. Don't be on diets. Be conscious, be mindful, because diet is a 4-letter word, and I now have to put $1 in the bucket for every time I say a 4-letter word, because I'm trying to get rid of those 4-letter words. So diet to me is I'm going to put $2 when I get back to Arizona in the bucket. So don't think of a diet as a bad thing. Think of being mindful about how you choose what you eat. Higher protein, you got to have fruits and vegetables. They're great for us. You know, and you want real stuff. You don't want canned and highly sugar processed stuff. Carbohydrates, you know, the white bread, the white rice, all that white stuff, like what the heck? I mean, what were we thinking? You know, I don't know who invented that stuff. You know, eat whole grain breads, eat, you know, we order out food, we'll get the brown rice, and you don't eat the whole bucket of the brown rice. It's pretty cheap. You can go get more of it later. You don't have to eat the whole thing of brown rice that comes with your lunch. And you want foods that are high in antioxidants and brightly colored. And if you eat smaller portions and you begin to do that more often, your stomach is going to get used to it and it's not going to be craving it. And menopause is wicked. The drugs we give you that induce menopause to keep your cancer from coming back is even more wicked. And so when the rest of the women around you only have that 30% decrease in metabolism, you probably have about a 50% decrease in metabolism. And it sucks, but is it worth living? Yes. So put on your big girl pants, get over it, figure out what you have to do to get to that place, where you can reach that steady state and be as healthy as you can be. Most of you have gotten the Viber Guide, kind of the Cliff Notes of nutrition, helping to teach us how to create a healthy balance in what we eat. One of the most important things, your urine should be that color. If your urine is not clear and barely yellow, you're not drinking enough water. We need water to detoxify and flush out our kidneys. And water, I mean, our bodies are mostly water, and you've got to replenish it. If you drink a cup of coffee, you need 2 like 8-ounce glasses of water to combat that because your body's craving it. And my bottle's right there. So exercise is important. I love it. I will tell you my new exercise routine is wonderful because I don't get on a treadmill anymore. I'm not even taking the treadmill out to Arizona. Anybody wants a treadmill or an EFX, like have it at my house and they're all yours because I don't want them anymore because I'm going out and being in nature because being in nature means I'm not really, it's not exercise, it's a spiritual experience, you know? It's a spiritual experience. It gives me about 12,000 steps on my freaking Fitbit every morning, you know? And I was like, really? 4 miles? Up the back of the mountain, back down? It's a good thing. So what fits your schedule better? Exercising an hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day? Take your choice. It's a simple choice. So in the Women's Health Initiative cohort study, looking at recreational activity, this is where the rubber meets the road, ladies. 74,000 women, okay, when they looked at the incidence of physical activity and breast cancer, all it takes is like 30 minutes a day, 3 hours a week to decrease your risk of breast cancer by 20%. It's a big deal. The good thing is, you know, women that work out 10 hours a week, which is a little excessive, only had a 22% increase, wasn't really worth that 4% for those extra 7 hours of exercise. So you need between 1.5 to 2 hours of exercise per week. 30 to 40 minutes a day, get out, get moving. And you know, when people say, oh, I'm busy all day, I was like, that's not exercise. You know, and the Fitbit now tells you whether you're exercising or whether you're just walking. Because like it gives me a little thing and it's like, you know, kind of like you didn't exercise today because you're not getting a little star on that side of your, on that side of your banner. So the more lean muscle mass you have, the more calories you burn. So if you exercise and do strength training and build your lean muscle mass and decrease your belly fat, the number of calories that you burn goes up and you get more bang for your buck. So decreased risk of breast cancer in postmenopausal women, and it's simple. We've got to move. We are cave people. We were meant to be out, you know, lifting up the buckets of laundry and hanging them out on the line. You know, I look at what my mom did. My mom had 7 kids and no dryer. She washed 7 children's laundry, and I think she didn't have a dryer for a long time. Even when she had the dryer, she stopped using it. She liked how it smelled. I actually thought the towels were really stiff and rough on my face when they hung outside, but I sucked it up because she liked the smell. But when you think about someone hanging up the laundry for 7 kids, you're down in the basket and up, down in the basket, and you hang it up. And so you're getting upper body, I mean, how many people do that kind of activity every day? And I would count that as exercise, just saying. If someone's telling me that they're hanging up 5 loads of laundry a day, that's gonna count as exercise. So here's your choice. I don't know, I'm not sure which one you'd like. Anybody have a pick? Oh, look at my girlfriend. So for those of you that don't know, this is the 46-year-old Connie Sabelli. This is the 46-year-old Connie Sabelli that walked into my office, and this was the 49? Yeah. This is the 49-year-old Connie Sabelli who walked down the runway in the fashion show. And my reason for putting this up here is twofold. Connie made these massive changes in her relationship with food. Christine Perillo got under her skin with her talk about sugar, and I swear to God, that night, Connie's brain shifted and she said, oh my God, I need to change my relationship with food, and which she did. But the other thing that this picture doesn't show is when Connie came around the second time through this process, she realized that her spiritual healing and her bliss coefficient were not exactly where they needed to be. So even if you do all the hard work and you get your body to that place, it's about balancing out the entire process. You can't just have the one physical part in isolation. Just like we can't do the physical isolation of the treatment of cancer, in this healing process, it's got to be across the board. You can't just say, well, if I lose weight and get in shape, my life is going to be good. Well, you look hot in your dress, and she did, and she looked fabulous going down the runway. But I can tell you that the Connie that came through this second episode was completely in alignment from top to bottom. And it's a great gift. So body composition, increased risk of systemic relapse with increased BMI. I'm not going to beat that dead horse. I've been talking about it the whole night. Regular exercise, it ups your mood because it builds endorphins and it increases self-esteem, and your body image gets good. You look in the mirror and you go, oh, I'm smoking hot. This is awesome. And you got to quit when you're still having fun. This is my girlfriend Brenda, who this was before her cancer diagnosis. This is back when she thought she was immune to cancer because she was my friend. She's like, I'm your friend because I don't ever want to get cancer. So if I'm your friend, that means I'm not going to get cancer, because God could not be that cruel. Like, I can't be your friend and get cancer. I'm like, okay. Well, anyway, my friend got cancer. This is not the body of an overweight, non-exercising person who wasn't doing the right stuff. This is the body of a woman who was doing all the right stuff, but was in a job that was beating the crap out of her, literally eating her to pieces. And so she took a different job for less money and less stress, and those are the things that she changed, because she said, you know what, cancer doesn't just come along and tap you on the shoulder. It does smack you upside the head with a 2x4. And not everybody looks like the poster child for cancer who gets it. But we all have to kind of figure out how not to get it again. So I got some hot news off the presses for lymphedema prevention. This is October 4th of 2017, which is 20 days old. And what they were looking at was identifying the risk factors for lymphedema, because there is so much crap that's out there, and everybody tells you something different. This is data, hot off the presses. The risk factors for lymphedema are obesity, high BMI, if you've had a full axillary node dissection, if you've had taxane chemotherapy. For some reason, the taxanes predispose our bodies to getting lymphedema. Radiation therapy and infection. So the whole idea about the IVs and the blood pressures and the blood draws and everything, if you have a blood draw where you get an infection in your arm, of course, that could potentially exacerbate an episode, but the blood draw itself isn't the issue. It's not the IV itself, it's not the issue. Actually, we know that exercise and air travel don't increase the risk. We actually know that exercise decreases the risk. But there's so much wives' tale out there. I mean, for years, when I first started training 26 years ago, oh, women shouldn't exercise, it's gonna make their lymphedema worse. We know it's just the opposite. Exercise helps decrease lymphedema. So weightlifting, following breast cancer, decreases the risk of lymphedema. 90 participants were in the study, and what they found was slow progressive strength training not only didn't cause lymphedema, but it actually helped to improve lymphedema. So you gotta exercise. My favorite thing, sleep. I love sleep. Anybody else in this room love sleep? It's just so awesome, isn't it? It's like, Another thing my new Fitbit tells me is I like sleeping in Arizona, because my old Fitbit back here used to tell me that at night I'd have an hour and a half of disturbed sleep, an hour and a half of restlessness. And it wasn't like I was getting up to pee. It's like my brain was going like this. And it's part of the Be Healthy program. So like if you wear this and you get all your steps, you get money back, so that's why I'm wearing it. I don't really need to clock myself, but I do look at the data now. And the data shows that now I sleep probably 6 or 7 hours a night, and I have 5 to 15 minutes of restlessness. Is it because I get up early in the morning and I exercise? I mean, I'm staying on East Coast time because this whole night shift and switching time zones is a bad thing. So I get up at 3:30, 4 in the morning in Arizona, I do my East Coast calls, I get on Meta, and I send you guys messages, because you're all up, you're all getting up, you know, waiting for your 14 hours to be over so you can eat breakfast. And, and then I go out for my hike, and I come back, and I'm telling you, by 8 o'clock at night, I'm tired. My quality of sleep has improved because I think I've become more balanced in how I live my day. Here on the East Coast, I would get up, and by the end of the day, I'd be like, oh God, do I really have energy to go to the gym? And it was really hard for me. I realized that my body craves exercise in the morning. You gotta figure out what your body is. Everybody's body's different. You might be a morning exerciser, you might be a night exerciser, but you gotta get it in somewhere. And I think I get up and want to exercise because I sleep well. Because I wake up feeling refreshed. I don't wake up feeling like I want to go back to sleep. So night work increases the risk of breast cancer. Their exposure to night light suppresses melatonin. So my husband doesn't like this. He calls it my helmet. I wear a night mask because when I read this study back in 2000 whatever, I recognized that those little LED lights in the room really disturb me because they ping my pineal gland. And then I don't make melatonin. So melatonin has huge antioxidant effects. I do recommend taking it at night because there's no negative feedback. I take 20 milligrams every night. And if we have sleep deprivation, it definitely alters our immune function because we cannot recover. And when you think about it, sleep issues are pretty much across the board associated with anxiety and depression because it's kind of a triad. It's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? So the other thing that we know is that, you know, breast tissue doesn't fully develop until the birth of the first child. So that we know that prior to conception and the birth of that first child, a woman's breasts are far more susceptible to the effects, the toxins of alcohol, to poor sleep, and poor night habits. So that's why the night work process is something to be mindful of, particularly for your daughters and your granddaughters if you've had cancer because of the risk. So at nighttime, the sleep increases natural killer cells, better immune surveillance, so you get less melatonin production if you're working night shift. And so we need the melatonin because it's the free radical scavenger. It's the stuff that's going out to get those free radicals that are created by the oxidative stress of being up all night and working those hours. So the whole idea with this is to not have you quit your night job. It's to understand that there are factors that come into play that we can make a difference. And I've had kids, daughters of my patients who are BRCA positive, and they're nurses, and I say to them, I don't want you working the night shift. And I'll give you a note that says, here's a clinical study, this is why you shouldn't be on these swing shifts because it can negatively impact your health. And the data's there. And that's a really ugly face. But this was in 2012, and this is why I love Lester Holt, because he is such a gentleman. This study showed clearly that women that work night shift or shifting shifts increase their risk of breast cancer, and that there was a greater incidence of breast cancer in these women that worked their shifts prior to the birth of their first child. So it's another, it's another factor that as we look at it, this is why sleep is important, this is why melatonin is important. So how do you prevent it? Again, the same thing, have your children early. If you're at high risk, avoid those jobs, and they shouldn't have any increased screening. That was the one thing that they said that they might do. I'm like, why would you increase the screening on somebody and radiate them more? Because that's not going to fix the problem. So this is my triad: anxiety, depression, insomnia. I can't stand it. It is the trifecta of PTSD that affects every single person that comes into my office with breast cancer. Some of you know that we have been working with the technology. The former technology was called Nexalon, the current technology is called Tessa. I'm happy to tell you that our first clinical trial is just accepted by the IRB to do it at Holy Redeemer for mild to moderate depression, and I had to suck it up and do this trial first because the real trial that I want to do is in all of our breast cancer patients, prospective randomized, to prove to the world that when we can alleviate the anxiety, depression, insomnia that comes with breast cancer, that we can do it without drugs, and that we can also decrease the risk of cancer coming back. Not a big fan of the drugs. The drugs are, the drugs treat the symptoms and they don't actually get rid of the problem. And I've told people for years that if there was a device that could cut out the fear when I cut out the cancer, I would be the CEO of that company and quit my day job. And this could be that device, because my higher purpose is not being a vice president. My higher purpose is finding out how I can get my patients, those of you in this room, and I adore you all, out of the fear zone and into the Zen zone, because getting you out of the fear drops your cortisol, helps you sleep, lets your natural killer cells start working, lets your melatonin come back. And last I'm going to talk about the environment, because this is actually available online now. Many of you have gotten it in my office, but you can go on breastcancer.org and you can download this PDF for the environmental sources. Food's our biggest exposure to chemicals, believe it or not, and the biggest exposure is during breast development, which is why young girls should not be drinking alcohol. It's as simple as that. I mean, particularly those at higher risk in families, alcohol is a carcinogen. Until you have that first kid, your breasts are, it's like, they're the factories that make the milk. They can take all of the nutrients out of your body and make a substance that supports a child for 2 years easily, just with breast milk. They're very susceptible to the toxins in the environment. We gotta wash our fruits and vegetables. Weed killers can turn into estrogen, so be careful what dandelions are not evil, not every dandelion has to be eradicated in the lawn. My neighborhood where I lived when we first moved up here, it was like a Stepford neighborhood. If you had a dandelion, it's like, oh my God, it's heresy, get that out of here, before it turns into a puffer and goes into my yard. And the people had these little flags everywhere, and I was like, what is the crap you're putting in your yard if your dogs aren't allowed to be on there? Why are you spraying this crap to be soaked up by the soil and let our kids play on it? All right, so you get that drift. The smoke in the air, obviously smoking is awful. The operating room cautery smoke we know is carcinogenic, and I've now moved to using a device that doesn't make carcinogenic smoke, because I'm just adding to the carbon footprint the bad potential cancer causes for my people that I work with. You want to watch out for the bisphenol A in the plastics, because they can be very, very harmful, and you don't want that plastic to be housing anything that you ingest. If you go to my office, you can ask for the pet peeve of mine. When I walk in and I see somebody microwaving in plastic, I do go apeshit. I like lose my, I'm like, what are you doing? Well, I'm just heating up my lunch. And it's like, have you ever heated up spaghetti sauce or anything in plastic? You notice how it gets etched in the edge, and you notice that taste and that flavor that you get. Do you think that's good for us? So buy some Pyrex. I mean, before I sell the house that I'm currently in, I'm going to take all of my glass containers, I'm going to donate them to the ladies in my office, and I want to put a secret camera there so I can watch to see if people are still microwaving the plastic. Use household products. I love. I'm not a plug-in for Melaleuca, but I love natural cleaning products that aren't giving me more chemicals to put in the environment. So everyone wants to know about vitamins. Vitamins do not replace your diet. Vitamins can supplement, and if you're deficient, you should be taking them. These are the vitamins that I do recommend. The folate and folic acid is important because it does help you metabolize some of the alcohol. It doesn't mean you can drink more alcohol if you take a folic acid supplement, but it can help you metabolize it. The zinc, the selenium, the vitamin C, these are all things you can see. I don't say take the supplement, it's liver, beef, carrots, spinach, kale, cantaloupes, the vitamin B. Breakfast cereals, they're all fortified, but you can get it with liver and beef. The nuts and sunflower has vitamin E, citrus fruits. So the sources are there. You just have to eat the sources. So vitamin D is really important because low levels of vitamin D has been associated with increased risk of breast cancer, because our bodies tend to make blood vessels when our vitamin D is low. And blood vessels, called angiogenesis, helps cancers grow. So you gotta have an adequate level of vitamin D. So this is the news flash for everybody in the room who's on an aromatase inhibitor, and apparently I need to call Dr. I'm not going to throw anybody in the bus. Multiple oncologist offices need to be called because patients are complaining of their aromatase inhibitors, and they're switching from drug to drug instead of helping you deal with the side effects. Rustoxodendron and rutagraviolins are two homeopathic substances that have been shown in approximately 85% of patients to get rid of the side effects that the aromatase inhibitors cause. I had a patient come in the office today who was thrilled because when she got the symptoms from the aromatase inhibitor, she forgot I had given her my little handout card from the office in her, meaningful use discharge instructions, where it told her that if she got the side effects from this medication, this is what she could take. So she took some non-steroidal, got sick as a dog from it, and then she took the Rustox and the rutagraviolins, and she is happy as a clam. And it's fabulous. I learned about it when I was over at a homeopathic conference, an oncology conference, and I also have some great little tips and tricks for chemotherapy, which we're going to be starting to institute as well. So this is great for joint issues. Diindolylmethane, it's in the cell walls of broccoli. It shows promise in breast cancer prevention. So you don't necessarily have to take DIM, but you should eat a lot of broccoli, and the more you chop it up, the higher level of DIM. So pomegranate, ginseng, CoQ10, green tea, and reishi. These are things that I do take every day, just because I don't get enough in my diet. And everybody wants to know, why do I take them? And do I have to take them? No, you don't have to take them, but I'm telling you why it can help. Janie's in here for one reason and one reason only, because these are dietary supplements. These are proven to have efficacy in helping prevent cancer and to improve our overall health and wellness. Janie, on the other hand, had bilateral stage 3C cancer, treated effectively, surgery, chemo, radiation. She was a model in our 2007 fashion show. Gorgeous human being, was stable without any evidence of disease, and she ordered some stuff off the internet for her varicose veins. The stuff that she ordered for her varicose veins made her liver shut down, and then she died of a complication from that process. So do not put stuff in your mouth that you buy off the internet with claims that it's going to do whatever. Varicose veins are not a big deal. They don't kill you. But medication can have side effects that completely derail your life. So you got to learn from my girlfriend Jane not to take anything. If you have a question, you call the office, you ask for a nurse practitioner, nurse navigator, Beth Matlack, one of us, Stacy, Catherine. We will, if we don't know what it is, we will research it. And if we can't find what it is, I'm going to tell you not to take it, because I have to have proof that it's not going to hurt you. So pomegranate is awesome. Research shows that it can inhibit cell growth for breast, prostate, colon, and lung cancer. That is why I drink my pomegranate juice, and I spend $11.99 for my little bottle, because not only does it look like the Cabernet Sauvignon I like to be drinking, it actually has a medicinal effect, and it's really good for you. I recently have learned how to peel pomegranates because this guy Ryan in the OR in Verde Valley has a pomegranate tree, so I know how to peel pomegranates, and they're fabulous, and now I just eat them by the spoonful, and I'm actually going to plant some at my house, so we will have a pomegranate party next year. Probably. American ginseng. Ginseng is a fabulous supplement, and it has been shown to, it's a phase 3 trial looking at ginseng, 2,000 milligrams a day, 2 times a day, during radiation therapy, gets rid of that fatigue that comes at about week 3 or 4. And it's a fabulous, and it's got to be American ginseng because of the way it's processed. So Wisconsin ginseng is American ginseng, because the last time I checked, Wisconsin is in the US. There are some Asian forms of it, but you want the American ginseng. CoQ10 is our mitochondrial cell support. I take CoQ10 every day. I love it. I think it's important. It supposedly can help us with all of our electron transport chains, and it can also help with the effect of some of the anti-estrogen medicines such as tamoxifen. Green tea. Green tea has ECGC, which is a substance that can also boost our immune system and help with surveillance. And I do take a green tea supplement. I do take the little pill because I like coffee, and if I drink 2 to 3 cups of green tea, I'm going to pee all the time, and I'm not going to be able to see the patients, and so then I'll have to either drink more water to, you know, combat the green tea, so I do take a green tea supplement instead of drinking the green tea. Reishi mushrooms, again, have a phenomenal ability to inhibit cell growth. All of these things have been studied in petri dishes and in animal models. There's not as much done on human models because you can't isolate each individual substance by itself in large studies. And green tea and reishi together work synergistically. Most important thing, de-stress. Would anybody like to hear Jody's voice when you fall off to sleep at night? Do you think that if you went through the colors and you went through the chakras and she was able to talk to you at night? I have a host of guided meditations. And you know when you lay in bed and your brain starts doing this, you're watching the stock exchange ticker tape go around. And you're laying there in bed. And you really would like to be asleep, but the ticker tape doesn't want to stop. The best thing you can do, which my husband doesn't like that either, with little earbuds in, and he knows because sometimes it's too loud. He's like, who's talking in bed? And I'm like, it's Kelly, and she's doing a meditation. But I find that my stress level decreases when I do a guided meditation prior to going to sleep. And whether I fall asleep with it in my ears or not, what it's doing is it's taking me, just like Jody did, to take you to that place where you actually relax, you distress, you're out of fight or flight, you're out of cortisol. We have done multiple retreats, and I plan on doing more of these because retreats are amazing. They are healing, they are fabulous. We eat great healthy food, just like the stuff you have back here. We do multiple different forms of kind of getting into that Zen zone. And so as we continue to progress with the Healing Consciousness Foundation, we're going to keep doing more and more retreats. That's my sister Susie at the top. She's fab. So to de-stress, you got to find a way. So you got to find what yours is. It may not be what mine is. It doesn't mean that you get up and you move to Sedona and you get up in the morning and hike, because you might be a nighttime exerciser, or you might be a beach person, and you may want to go and sit at the beach and let the water run up against your feet every day. I mean, everybody has to find their own Zen zone. You got to use exercise to burn off steam and stress. And I don't feel like I exercise anymore because my hiking is so meditative, and I am in that. It just feels so awesome to be climbing up the Red Rocks. I don't climb Boob Mountain. This is Boob Mountain, by the way. It's called Twin Buttes, but it looks like boobs. And it's outside my kitchen window. And I haven't climbed that yet, but I'm planning on doing that. I'm going to climb the boobs with my kids over Thanksgiving. You got to create quiet time for your mind. And my quiet time now is after I get up and I do my conference call, whatever, the East Coast, because everybody has 7 a.m. meetings, because surgeons tend to do that. So I do that from 4 to 5. And then I sit in my little red chair and I do one of my meditations, or I just sit there and do a mantra meditation. And it doesn't always have to be the same thing, because sometimes I get bored. But I found a way to get into that space between the words where you don't have that conversation going on. And then I go do my hike. And then I come back. And then I start my day of my work, my real job. And you got to be in the moment, because being in the moment means that you're present exactly where you are. And I try desperately in the office to be in the moment, because I used to be distracted a lot when I would be, trying to talk to a patient, and I realized like how rude that is. And if you think about it, when you go out to dinner with your friends, put the damn cell phones away. I am guilty as charged. It's one of the topics of my next book called Shifting Gears, because it is such a horrible addiction that we are so distracted and we're not really in the moment. We're missing the opportunity to be with that person that you're there with. And my husband doesn't even say anything anymore. He just kind of get the look. And he doesn't know yet, because he's not going to listen to this talk. But when he's moving out to Sedona, like, I'm having cell phone free time, which means when I'm coming home, the phones are off. Now, I got the one work phone that I might have to answer a patient call. Like, I could make that phone number from the service a favorite, so that call will come through, and you can program your phones the same way. You might want your kids to be your favorites, or your mom, or whatever. But you don't have to be instantly, turn off all those stupid alarms that tell you that somebody liked you freaking on Facebook. Do you care? You know, or that somebody tweeted your tweet or whatever. Like, you don't need to know that stuff, you know, and I apologize because it takes me weeks sometimes, and people are like, oh, I friended you 3 weeks ago. I'm like, I don't look at that. I mean, I don't, you know, and I felt really bad because one of my memo texts, Dora's like, you didn't take my, accept my friend request. I'm like, Dora, I don't even know what your last name is. Because we don't wear, like, we don't have, like, she's got this, like, three named last names. Like, I would never recognize it anyway. And you can't see the little pictures when you look on there. Like, I don't know if I can recognize you, but, you know, we got to be in the moment. My sister Sue does this beautiful yoga nidra. Happy to ship it out to you guys. Again, one of my favorite 19-minute ways to relax. I love doing it between my morning and afternoon because it's not going to sleep. But in 20 minutes, you feel like you've slept for 3 hours. That is a bonus. That is a great return on investment. 20 minutes, you feel like you slept for 3 hours. And find what works for you. Then you get to lead your friends. Kind of like I'm here tonight with you guys. And this has been a work in progress. Like, this is years of trying to figure this out. And I do know that the most important thing that you're going to remember from tonight is the bliss coefficient. Because if you do all the right stuff with your body, you eat the right stuff, and you take the right supplements, and your BMI is perfect, and you look in the mirror, and you love your belly, but you're not happy in your relationship, you're not happy with where you work, and you are not happy with your life, look out. That's why you've got to become blissful. You've got to find what makes you happy. You must be the change that you wish to see in the world. Nobody else can do it for you. Nobody else was going to make me happy. Nobody else was going to say, okay, you know, I always kept looking at how many things were right with my life and not the things that I could have made better. And it's not like I made a choice, a conscious choice to like just throw my life up and start over, because I don't really feel like I'm throwing my life up and starting over. I feel like I'm getting an opportunity to take care of women who haven't had this type of care that's balanced, and I'm more balanced because my best gift is not in a boardroom. It's with patients. It's with groups of people trying to inspire them to do and be the best they can be. And I don't know if you guys know Sharon Harrison, but she did this beautiful, this was her idea. There are a bunch of your hands in this room on there, and there's a bunch of your thumbprints on that dragonfly. And I actually want that dragonfly to go to the Breast Friends meeting, if we can, because I want to finish out the tail, and I want thumbprints all over it, because that puppy's going to Sedona, just saying. I mean, that's my dragonfly, and it's in the office, and I want it back. But I need to have the thumbprints completed, so anybody in this room want to be responsible for that, Colleen? You've been voluntold. That's what my children tell me. Maybe they were voluntold. Anyway, I thank you guys. I'm happy to take questions. I hope you might have learned something, and this will be up online, and I'm going to just walk over here now, push the button, and stop it. Low battery. Well, good. I guess I should have plugged it in. Don't you love technology?